Chapter 30-28. Fengjiu glanced at the sorcerer but did not ask him anything. Instead, he walked to the women who were locked up and released them from the cages. The women hugged each other and did not dare to approach them. "Don't be afraid. We're not bad people," Wan Yen-Shur-san said. However, his words did not make the women let down their guard. Instead, they began to cry. "Why are you crying? Women are so troublesome," he said angrily. Seeing Fengjiu staring at him, he said in a low voice, "I'm not talking about you." Fengjiu glanced at him and walked forward. He said to the women, "We're from the Immortal Sect. We're here for a mission. Don't worry, we'll send you back. But before that, you have to answer a few questions." Hearing this, one of the women asked timidly, What questions? "Have you seen an extremely beautiful woman dressed in red?" she asked. Yes, I saw her when I was first caught. She was very beautiful, but she was surrounded by the sorcerers. There was also a very powerful sorcerer. She was injured and ran away. Those sorcerers chased after her. We don't know if she's dead or alive. We haven't seen her since that day." Hearing this, Fengjiu and Wan Yen-Shur-san looked at each other and asked for some details. In the end, the two of them walked to the sorcerer and stood in front of him. Wan Yen-Shur-san clenched his fist and said to Fengjiu, "Let me break his teeth first. That way, I'm afraid he'll bite his tongue and commit suicide after I reattach his jaw." "Okay." Fengjiu nodded in agreement. Wan Yen-Shur-san clenched his fist and punched the sorcerer's mouth hard. With a scream, the sorcerer's teeth fell to the ground. His mouth was full of blood. It was a horrible sight. Chen Jinren shook his head and muttered in his heart, "Too cruel, these two are too cruel." Wan Yen-Shur-san held the heretic's chin and asked, "Speak. Where is that woman in red?" The evil cultivator spat out a mouthful of blood and felt a gust of air leaking out of his mouth. Unable to move his body, his spiritual power was sealed, and his teeth were knocked out. It could be said that he was in a state worse than death. He suppressed his anger and glared fiercely at the two of them. He kept his mouth shut and didn't say a word. "You're not going to tell me? I have plenty of ways to make you talk." Wan Yen-Shur-san snorted coldly and went forward to lift him up. He reached out his hand and pinched his spine. His hand moved, and for a moment, a heart-wrenching scream rang out. "Ah! Are you going to tell me or not?" Wan Yen-Shur-san stood at the side and watched. He watched as the heretic screamed on the ground and curled up into a ball. Fengjiu watched from the side. He didn't expect the evil cultivator to be so cruel when it came to interrogating people. The pain of pinching the bones in a person's body before reattaching them was so excruciating that it was worse than death. It wasn't something that an ordinary person could endure. The evil cultivator probably wouldn't be able to hold on for long before he relented. I'll talk. The evil cultivator said in a trembling voice, "I just want a quick death." "Speak." Wan Yen-Shur-san stood in front of the evil cultivator with his arms crossed and stared at him, waiting for him to continue. Chapter 30-29. She fell off the cliff. We didn't search for her, so we don't know if she's dead or alive, the evil cultivator said with a trembling voice. His voice was weak, as if he could not breathe at any time. Hearing this, the two's hearts sank. Fell off the cliff. Was there a chance for her to survive? No, she should still be alive. Her life jade tablet was still there. She should still be alive. Which cliff? Where did the protector go? Why isn't he here? Fengjiu asked, staring at the evil cultivator on the ground. Just walk straight ahead, and you'll see a cliff. She fell from there. She was hit by a poisonous hidden weapon. I don't think she'll survive. When the evil cultivators saw their cold expressions, there was only despair in his eyes. He knew that he wouldn't be able to survive here, and no one could save him. He only wanted to die a quick death, so he told them everything he knew. Our protector went back, leaving us here to collect the blood essence and souls of these women. We planned to leave after dealing with these women, but we didn't expect to meet you. Wanyan Shirsan's face darkened. He waved his hand and ended the evil cultivator's life. He looked at Fengzhou and said, I plan to go to the cliff to take a look. Okay, I'll go with you. Fengzhou said, then turned to Perfected Qin and said, Perfected Qin, I'll have to trouble you to send these women back. We'll part ways here. You want to go to the cliff yourself? Perfected Qin was surprised. He knew that they were here to look for someone. However, the evil cultivator said so. Did they not think that person could still be alive? I'll have to trouble you to take care of these women. Fengzhou said and nodded slightly. Perfected Qin could only nod. I know, don't worry. I'll send these women back. However, it's late at night, and it's not easy to find the road at night. Even if you go to the cliff, you won't be able to see anything because of the darkness. Why don't you rest tonight and make arrangements tomorrow? Hearing this, the two nodded. All right, it's decided then. Thus, they found a place to settle down, and at the same time, made sure that the women were within their line of sight. Wanyan Shirsan did not rest that night. Instead, he was busy dealing with the hidden ghosts in the forest. The next morning, Fengzhou and Wanyan Shirsan parted ways with him. Before they parted, Chen Jinren looked at them and said, The two of you, if you have the opportunity to visit the Xiaoyao sect in the future, I will treat you well. Definitely. The two of them smiled and nodded. After saying their goodbyes, they watched as he led the women away on his flying artifact. When they could no longer be seen, Fengzhou and Wanyan Shirsan walked deeper into the forest. They followed the trees until they reached the cliff. Standing at the edge of the cliff and looking down, they saw that it was a vast expanse of green. It was also a dense forest. However, at this height, if an injured person fell down, he was afraid that let's go down and take a look. Fengzhou said, looking down. He hoped that his sister was saved by someone. Otherwise, the odds would be stacked against him. Chapter 30:30. The two of them flew down on their swords, the cold wind blowing in their faces was somewhat bone-chilling. The closer they got to the bottom, the clearer the roars of the beasts became. When the two of them landed on the ground, they looked around and said, There should be many beasts roaming around here. Let's split up and search. Regardless of whether we find them or not, we'll meet at the tallest tree before sunset. Fengzhou pointed to an extremely tall tree in front of them and said. All right, be careful. Wanyan Shirsan said. Because he knew her strength, he was not too worried that she would encounter danger here. Fengzhou responded and headed in one direction. Wanyan Shirsan also headed in the other direction, calling out Wanyan Qinhua's name. Sister. Sister. Where are you? Fengzhou shouted, while using her divine sense to explore the surrounding areas where people might be hiding. However, her call did not get any response from Wanyan Qianhua, but instead attracted a beast. Seeing the ferocious beast walking towards her with a ferocious look, Fengzhou glanced at it indifferently. With just a glance, the ferocious beast's legs went soft and it ran away, leaving behind a cloud of dust. As she walked forward, she was also calculating in her heart. Her sister had been poisoned and fell down here, so there were only 3 outcomes. One was that she died here and was eaten by a ferocious beast without leaving a corpse behind. 2 was that she was rescued and taken away from here. The last possibility was that she was hiding somewhere to recuperate. The first and last possibilities could be eliminated, because if she died here, then her life jade tablet would not light up. As for hiding and recuperating, based on the medicinal pills she gave her, if she recovered a little, she should contact her master. Then, only the middle possibility was left. If she was rescued and taken away, at least they would know that she was alive, so there was no need to worry too much. She believed that as long as she recovered, she would definitely return to the immortal sect. As she thought, she walked forward. When she heard a signal in the sky, she instinctively looked up and saw that a distress signal had popped up in the sky. When she saw that it was a distress signal from the Blue Star Immortal Sect, she couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. CK and Muaxayan had both given her the Immortal Sect's distress signal, saying that if she encountered any danger or trouble that she could not solve, she could release the Immortal Sect's distress signal. As long as there were disciples of the Immortal Sect nearby, they would come to help. She didn't expect to see the Blue Star Immortal Sect's distress signal here. Although she wasn't a member of the Immortal Sect, she still had some connections with them. Moreover, she had been using the Immortal Sect's name to do things. Now that she saw the Immortal Sect's distress signal, it wouldn't be right if she didn't go and take a look. Just as she was thinking, she saw 2 more distress signals being released. When she saw this, her eyes flashed slightly. They had released several distress signals in a row, so it was obvious that the situation was very dangerous. In that case, she should go and take a look. Chapter 30-31. What should we do? We can't hold them off any longer. One of the women's eyes were red and her face was filled with despair. Don't worry about us. Hurry up and run for your lives. The men on the ground behind them urged them to run for their lives. Impossible. We can't leave you behind. Another woman said and gritted her teeth, at most, we'll perish together with these ferocious beasts. Hearing these words, the men felt upset, but there was nothing they could do. In this place, especially in this situation, they had been running for their lives and fighting all the way here. They had already used up all the weapons they could use. Even their life-saving treasures were gone. Now, they could only pin their hopes on the sect's distress signal. However, how could their sect's members be at the bottom of such a deep cliff? They were afraid that this time, only death awaited them. You could have survived, but you chose to stay and die. I can only say that you're stupid. One of the men with a grim expression stared coldly at them. If it weren't for the 2 of you, we wouldn't have ended up like this. Hurry up and get out of here. When the 2 women heard this, they couldn't help but grit their teeth. Tears welled up in their eyes, but they still had no intention of escaping. Although they were also injured, they should still be able to escape if they left them behind. However, if they escaped, the few senior brothers would really only have one path, which was death. As long as they escaped, those ferocious beasts would definitely pounce forward to tear them into pieces and eat them into their stomachs without anyone to stop them. They were all heaven's favored children of the sect, so how could they end up without a corpse remaining? Didn't you hear me? Get out of here. You don't need to stay here and block them for us. The grim man shouted again. His voice was sharp and his gaze was cold. Every word of his pierced the hearts of the 2 women, causing them to feel so uncomfortable that they cried. However, they knew that he wanted to force them to leave so that they could continue living. When the other men heard the grim man's words, they remained silent. However, when they saw that the 2 women didn't leave no matter how much the grim man scolded them, they sighed softly, forget it. Since they're not leaving, stop scolding them. They won't feel good if you continue scolding them. Hiss. The ferocious beasts approached step by step and roared. They opened their mouths, revealing sharp teeth that were dripping with saliva. It was as if they had seen something delicious. They roared as they walked forward. When one of the women saw this, she said, I'll use my spiritual aura to set up a defensive barrier. Hopefully, it can hold them off for a while. As she spoke, she used her remaining spiritual aura and set up a defensive barrier around them. The airflow visible to the naked eye surged and formed a small defensive shield, protecting the few people in the middle. The 2 women didn't dare to be careless. They still stood there with swords in their hands and stared ahead. When the ferocious beasts in front of them saw that they had set up a defensive shield, they let out a low roar and one of them pounced forward. Chapter 30-32 TSK 5 Sacred Beasts and 2 Divine Beasts. You guys sure know how to provoke them. Fengjiu walked out of the forest and glanced at the few people in the defensive barrier, then looked at the ferocious beasts. Those 5 sacred beasts were nothing in her eyes, but those 2 divine beasts had already reached the level of divine beasts. Their fur was snow white with black stripes, and they made her eyes light up. Sigh, her man had said that he wanted 2 ferocious beasts to guard the door. These 2 ferocious beasts looked pretty good. Roar! One of the ferocious beasts bared its sharp teeth and pounced at Fengjiu. Fengjiu only glanced at it indifferently, then raised his hand and slapped the ferocious beast away. Roar! The ferocious beast was sent flying, and the 2 sharp teeth in front of its mouth fell out. Its roar turned into a wail, and it looked at Fengjiu in horror, not daring to move forward. Seeing this scene, the few people in the defensive barrier were stunned. What happened just now? They only saw that person raise his hand and slap the ferocious beast, and it was sent flying. Was it sent flying? After their astonishment, their eyes lit up. Maybe this person could save them. At that moment, they shouted at the man in green who was walking over, Senior, save us. Senior. Fengjiu was slightly stunned. He lowered his head and looked at her. She had even become a senior. However, she was more powerful than them, so it was normal for her to call him senior. There are so many ferocious beasts surrounding them. Don't you feel embarrassed? Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and glanced at the 2 divine beasts. The more he looked at them, the more he felt that the 2 ferocious beasts' skins were very beautiful. They were black and white and looked majestic. It would be a good idea to bring them back to guard the door. Roar! One of the ferocious beasts roared, but its voice was loud and clear. In the end, because of Fengjiu's glance, it turned into a soft howl and even lowered its head. Don't be noisy, don't shout. My temper isn't very good. If you make me angry, you'll have to pay for it. As she spoke, she stepped forward and looked at the beasts that were retreating vigilantly. She smiled and said, Don't even think about running away. I haven't allowed you to leave yet. You too, I need 2 watchdogs. Come back with me. She stared at the 2 ferocious tigers with a smile. However, her smiling appearance and casual tone made the 2 ferocious tigers shudder involuntarily. Instinctively, they felt that this human was very dangerous. One of the ferocious tigers lowered its front 2 legs and let out a muffled roar. It stared at Fengjiu with its bloodshot eyes. In the next moment, it stomped its hind legs and charged at Fengjiu with its sharp tiger claws. Ah! Senior, be careful. The 2 women inside the defensive barrier cried out in alarm. They were afraid that the slim chance of survival they had with great difficulty would turn into a bubble in the end. However, after seeing the next scene, their worries turned into dumbfoundedness. The ferocious tiger that had pounced forward was kicked away by the green-clothed man. At the same time, before the ferocious tiger could leap up, the green-clothed Fengjiu rushed forward and punched and kicked the ferocious beast. Punches landed one after another, and muffled groans and howls could be heard, causing the hearts of those who heard them to tremble in fear. Roar! Chapter 30-33 Bang! After the other tiger fell from the sky, it lay on the ground for a long time without being able to get up. It could only howl as it looked at Fengjiu in shock. On the other side, the tiger that was being beaten by Fengjiu howled and finally begged for mercy in human language. Stop fighting, stop fighting. How about it? How about coming back with me to guard the door? Fengjiu stopped and patted the male tiger lying at her feet with one hand. These two tiger beasts were a male and a female, and they had both reached the level of mythological beast. It would be best to bring them back. We are tigers, and divine beasts at that. We are not dogs, how can you let us guard the door? The male tiger protested in a low voice, its voice getting softer and softer. In the end, it did not dare to say another word. It wanted to escape, but it was unable to do so due to the powerful pressure of the other party. They could not understand, how could there be such a perverted person in this place? The powerful aura of this human was one thing, but the most important thing was that this human had the pressure of an ancient divine beast. If the other party was only powerful, they could still fight to the death, but once they encountered the ancient pressure, they did not even have the ability to fight. Even if they were mythological beasts, in the face of an ancient mythological beast, they still couldn't do anything. It was a kind of spiritual submission, a kind of uncontrollable impulse to kneel down and worship. Compared to the king of beasts, the ancient mythological beast was an existence that beasts didn't dare to be presumptuous. Is there a need to consider? Fengzhou's voice still sounded indifferent, but it made the two divine beasts shiver. They immediately said, We are willing to follow Master, we are willing to listen to Master's orders. Good. Fengzhou smiled with satisfaction and glanced at the divine beasts. Why aren't you scramming? The divine beasts were so scared that they quickly ran away. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared, leaving behind the stunned people who were still in the defensive barrier. Fengzhou walked in front of the defensive barrier with his hands behind his back. He looked at the few heavily injured men and the two blood-stained women who were still holding onto their swords on guard. He asked, Are you disciples of the Blue Star Immortal sect? At this time, they came back to their senses. The two women cupped their hands and Thank you for saving our lives, Senior. We are all disciples of the Blue Star Immortal sect. May I ask for your name? We will definitely repay you in the future. Fengzhou stretched out her hand and pointed forward, and the defensive barrier shattered with a bang. She took a step forward and glanced at the men lying on the ground. Looks like your injuries aren't light. In addition to the claws of the ferocious beasts, there are also traces of other attacks. She paused, glanced at them, and asked casually, What did you guys do? Master, they stole the longevity fruit that we've been guarding for 100 years. The male tiger said as he stared at those people with an unfriendly gaze. Hearing this, the two women couldn't help but gulp and looked at Fengzhou with some vigilance. This person was so strong. If he wanted to snatch the longevity fruit that they had picked with great difficulty, then wouldn't they be unable to protect it? At this time, the cold man glanced at Fengzhou and said to one of the women, Junior Sister Mu, this senior saved us. Let's give him the longevity fruit. Chapter 30-34. Hearing this, Fengzhou smiled. She watched as the woman took out a box and handed it to her. Senior, this is the life fruit. Fengzhou glanced at the box and saw that the fruit was about the size of a fist. The fruit was purple and white in color. Spiritual qi overflowed from it and the fragrance of the fruit assailed her nostrils. It looked very delicious. She glanced at the cold man with a smile that was not a smile. She found it funny. This man was worried that she would attack them because of the life fruit and kill them to snatch the fruit. That was why he gave her the life fruit in order to save his life. She had to admit that this person was quite smart. If it was someone else who saw the life fruit, they would probably kill them and run away. However, she did not care about these two fruits. She said, Put it away. Compared to these two fruits, I prefer treasures and the like. A life-saving grace can also be repaid with treasures, do you understand? Hearing this, the few of them were stunned. This person did not want the life fruit. Did he not know how precious the life fruit was? It was a spirit fruit that could extend one's life and increase one's strength. It took 500 years for it to bloom and bear fruit. How could it be measured by wealth? Senior, you don't want the life fruit. The woman surnamed Mu was stunned and did not react. Fengjiu glanced at her and said, "Why aren't you helping them treat their wounds? If you delay any longer, they won't be able to live." Hearing this, the woman came back to her senses and put away the life essence fruit. She helped the people who were leaning against each other to stand up under a big tree and bandaged their wounds. "You guys wait here first. Don't run around. I won't be responsible if you are eaten by the fierce beasts," Fengjiu instructed them. Then, he left a fierce tiger to watch the surroundings and walked into the forest with another tiger. "Let's go. Take me to see what the life fruit tree looks like." Fengjiu mounted the fierce tiger and walked into the depths of the forest. As they walked, the tiger asked, "Master, there are no more fruits on the longevity fruit tree. The next time it bears fruit will be 1,000 years later. What's the point of looking at it now?" Then, he couldn't help but ask, "Master, why didn't you take the 2 life origin fruits? It's just 2 longevity fruits. They risked their lives to obtain them. What's the point of taking their fruits? Besides, it's useless to me," Fengjiu said leisurely as he sat on the tiger's back. "Master, it's useless for you, but it's useful for us. If we eat it, our strength will definitely break through another level," the tiger quickly said. Hearing this, Fengjiu chuckled, "As long as you guys are obedient and guard the door obediently, don't talk about first level, even breaking through and becoming a sacred beast is possible." As soon as he said this, the tiger instinctively wanted to turn its head. However, when it turned, it almost threw Fengjiu off its back. Fengjiu clasped the tiger's body and patted its head. "What are you doing?" "Master, you're telling the truth. We can become sacred beasts." At this time, the eyes of the tiger, who was already a sacred beast, were filled with surprise and excitement. It couldn't wait to turn around and see its master's expression when he said this. Chapter 30-35. Hearing this, the tiger immediately became excited. Master, then what good method do you have for us to advance?" Fengjiu chuckled and said unhurriedly, "After a long time, you will naturally know." The tiger brought Fengjiu to the place where the longevity fruit was planted and said, "Master, this is the tree." The tiger crouched down and let Fengjiu down, while using its claws to point at the tree in front. Fengjiu looked at the tree that was about 3 to 4 meters tall in front of her. Seeing that there were only green leaves, she asked, "This tree only bears 2 fruits." She walked up to the tree and could still vaguely smell the fragrance of the longevity fruit from the tree. This made her raise her eyebrows. There were no more fruits, but there was still a fruity fragrance. It was indeed not an ordinary spiritual fruit tree. However, looking at the tree was damaged and the leaves were not lush. There were also withered branches among the branches, as if it was about to wither. The tiger shook its head and said, "I don't know. Maybe this tree can't bear fruit. When we found it, there were only 2 small fruits on the tree. It was not easy to wait until the fruits ripened, but they were stolen. This tree probably won't live for long." Hearing this, Fengjiu touched the tree and was about to withdraw her hand when she heard a small voice. "Save me, save me." She looked around and did not see anyone. When she listened carefully, she found that the voice seemed to be coming from the tree. Her heart was slightly surprised. She put one hand on the tree and asked, "Are you talking?" "I didn't say anything." The tiger looked at Fengjiu in confusion. Fengjiu ignored it and looked at the longevity tree in front of her. "It's me, please save me. I feel that you have a very strong vitality, please save me." The voice was very soft. If she did not listen carefully, she would not have heard it. "Have you become a spirit?" Fengjiu's eyes flashed. "I am a tree spirit, but I am too weak and cannot condense essence into form. I can only attach myself to the longevity tree." Hearing this, Fengjiu put one hand on the tree. With a thought, the longevity tree was moved into the space. This scene made the tiger beside her widen its eyes in shock. Let's go. Fengjiu turned and said to the tiger beast, then jumped on its back. The tiger beast wanted to ask, but it did not know how to ask. It just walked quietly and brought her back to the previous place. How are you guys? Have you rested well? Fengjiu got down from the tiger's back and walked towards the people resting under the tree. The two tiger beasts huddled together at this time and retreated to the side. They stuck their heads together and talked about something. They only looked at Fengjiu from time to time. Senior, we've already bandaged the external wounds of the senior brothers, but their internal injuries are also very serious. I'm afraid they won't be able to walk for a while. As the woman surnamed Mu spoke, she cautiously looked at Fengjiu. Senior, can you rest for a bit longer? Fengjiu glanced at them and asked, don't you have an inner core? In this situation, they had to take an inner core. As long as they took it, their internal injuries would heal quickly. Otherwise, how could they recover slowly? Chapter 30-36. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled faintly. So you're saying that you have the ability to leave this place? As he spoke, he nodded without waiting for them to speak. That's true. I've already saved your lives. Whatever happens to you next has nothing to do with me. Senior, we're not. Before the man could finish speaking, he was interrupted. I was wondering why I saw the distress signal from the Blue Star Immortal Sect. So there are disciples of the Blue Star Immortal Sect here. Wanyan Shirsan walked over from nearby. When he saw Fengjiu, he was about to speak when he caught a glimpse of the two divine beast-level ferocious tigers at the side. He was immediately shocked. Damn! There are actually two ferocious beasts. And they're divine beast level. He stared at Fengjiu and gestured. Hurry up and come over. Why are you still standing there like a fool? Don't you see that those two divine beasts are closest to you? Fengjiu was stunned for a moment. He turned around and glanced at Wanyan Shirsan's nervous expression. He could not help but laugh. What are you nervous about? I just took them in. Ah. What? Did I hear wrongly? He stared at her with a stunned expression. Fengjiu smiled and explained, I said, I just took them in. My house is lacking two ferocious beasts to guard the door. I saw that these two tigers looked pretty good and majestic, so I wanted to bring them back to guard the house. You're really something. He did not know what to say. She came out to look for someone, and she actually got two divine beasts to guard the door. He was not convinced by heaven or earth, but he was really convinced by her. He strode forward and stared at the two divine beasts. Then, he looked at Fengjiu and asked, how did you take them in? I took them in with my fists. Fengjiu smiled mysteriously and glanced at the two divine beasts. TSK, you're not simple. He crossed his arms and stared at her. This little girl, she's really something. You saw the distress signal and came over? Fengjiu asked. Yes. Seeing that it was a distress signal from the Blue Star Immortal Sect, I wanted to come over and take a look. I didn't expect you to be here too. He looked at the people under the tree and walked over. Hey, what kind of disciples are you from the Immortal Sect? As he spoke, a pair of eyes sized them up, clearly understanding their strength and the current situation. We are core disciples. Senior, you are. So you are a core disciple. He nodded, and without giving them a chance to speak, he asked, then let me ask you, did you meet Wanyan Qianhua here? Senior Sister Wanyan. No. They shook their heads and asked, did something happen to Martial Sister Wanyan? Why did the two seniors come here to look for her? Wanyan Shirsan glanced at them and said sarcastically, what does it have to do with you where we are going to find her? On the other hand, each and every one of you is half dead. You still dare to say that you are core disciples? With such strength, you dare to come here. And he actually survived. How strange. When he said this, they did not say a word. They did not know who these two people were, but their strength was above theirs. If one of them angered them, who knew what would happen? Hey, I remember that you, little girl, are from Muaxan's clan. Wanyan Shirsan stared at one of the girls. Chapter 30-37. Hee, you haven't seen me before, but I've seen you before. Otherwise, how could I recognize you? Wanyan Shirsan said, then ignored her and ran to Fengzhou's side. He winked at Fengzhou and asked in a low voice, what does this have to do with you? What does it have to do with me? Fengzhou glared at him. How can it have nothing to do with you? Although I don't know where you came from, or what your relationship with the Blue Star Immortal Sect is, you were entrusted to me by CK and Muaxin. How can it have nothing to do with you? He stared at her with a look that said, don't lie to me, I know you. Fengzhou's mouth twitched, but he couldn't be bothered to say more. He only said, we've searched this area, but we haven't found any news of my sister. I think she must have been rescued by someone, and she's probably not here anymore. If she was rescued, I think we'll have news about her after a while. Then what do you mean? He looked at her and asked. Fengzhou said slowly, the trail ends here. It's futile to continue searching, so it's better to wait for news. Listening to their conversation, the two mythical beasts squatting nearby looked at each other. They were a little confused when they heard about being rescued. They were only concerned about when their master would return. When could they evolve? When could they meet their master's other contracted beasts? But why didn't their master contract them? As Fengzhou and the others were talking, the people under the tree were also discussing. I think that if they can save us, they won't attack us. Also, they mentioned senior sister Wanyan, so she should be someone related to our immortal sect. Now that we're seriously injured, even if we can barely recover, we won't be able to fight if we encounter danger again. Why don't we follow them? This way, we'll be safer. Yes, I agree. The man with the cold expression replied. He looked at the two people talking in front of him. But, will they refuse to let us go with them? After all. The two women were a little hesitant and worried. Whether we agree or not, we'll only know after we try. If we don't even dare to open our mouths, how will we have the opportunity to travel with them? If we miss this opportunity and lose our lives, won't we regret it? Hearing this, the few of them pondered. After a while, they secretly made up their minds. The few men felt the chi in their bodies gradually stabilizing, so they helped each other to stand up. The two women hurriedly helped to support them. Let's go. Let's go up and ask. Several men said as they walked forward step by step. Fengzhou and Wanyan Shirsan were talking. When they saw them, they stopped and looked at them. Senior, we would like to travel with you. Please bring us along. A man said. His first words were not a question, but a request. He knew that if he asked in an inquiring tone, the other party would most likely reject him. But if he asked, they would at least consider it. This way, they would have a better chance. Hearing this, Fengzhou looked at Wanyan Shirsan. When Wanyan Shirsan saw her looking at him, he said unhappily, "Why are you looking at me? Do we need you to make the decision? It's none of my business." He looked indifferent as he crossed his arms and looked away. Chapter 30-38. She didn't refuse, nor did she refuse. Instead, she asked, "How much are you willing to pay each of you for me to bring you along?" Hearing this, they were startled for a moment. They had never encountered such a situation before. The man who asked before paused for a moment, then followed Fengzhou's words and asked, "Senior, how much do you think is appropriate? Seeing that you are core disciples of the immortal sect, how about this? It's not much, just give me 1,000,000 gold coins each." She could use these gold coins to add more food to her purple gold twin deer. 1,000,000 gold coins. They were stunned. They didn't expect it to be so much. What? You think it's too expensive? Fengjiu glanced at them and said leisurely, you should know that just those 2 fruits of yours are worth a lot of money. 1,000,000 gold coins per person to save your lives and help you keep those fruits. It's really a good deal. If it weren't for the fact that you are disciples of the immortal sect, I wouldn't have bothered to help. They hesitated for a moment. He was right. Not to mention other things, just the life origin fruit that took 500 years to bloom and 500 years to bear fruit was already not worth this price. Moreover, what about their safety? We agree. The cold man said and agreed, however, Senior must ensure that we can safely return to the immortal sect. If you follow me, as long as you don't cause trouble, there shouldn't be any problems. Fengjiu said and looked at Wang Yanshi-san, what about you? Are you going back to your family or the immortal sect? Wang Yanshi-san thought for a moment and said, I'll go with you to the immortal sect. Maybe if there's any news, her master will be the first to know. Right now, there's no big matter in my family, so there's no need to rush back. Fengjiu nodded and waved her hand. A simple flying ship appeared in front of them. She gestured to the people, get on. When they saw the spaceship, their eyes flashed slightly. After responding, they helped each other onto the spaceship. Wang Yanshi-san stared at the flying ship and clicked his tongue, I don't even have such a big flying ship. Your flying ship should have been simplified and shrunk, right? I don't think it's only at this level. Fengjiu smiled. There aren't many people. A spaceship this big is enough. Any bigger and it will attract too much attention. That's true. Wang Yanshi-san jumped up and found a place to sit down. Then, he saw that there was a lot of food on the ship. He couldn't help but walk to the place where the food was placed. He kept talking to himself. You two should shrink a little. Fengjiu glanced at the 2 tiger beasts. Yes, master. With a shake of their bodies, they shrunk to the size of a cat. They were inconspicuous, but also very similar to cats. At first glance, no one would think that they were 2 tiger beasts. After all, tigers and cats were originally of the same species. The group boarded the flying ship and went into the city. Along the way, the people on the flying ship only stared at the 2 of them and tried to find out their identities several times. However, they didn't manage to get anything out of them. Instead, the 2 of them figured out their own backgrounds. When they reached the city gate, Fengjiu found an inconspicuous place to keep the flying ship. She said to the few of them, let's go. If you want to rest, you have to go into the city to rest. Chapter 30-39. How do you relax? Fengjiu glanced at him. Seeing his mysterious look, she couldn't help but be curious. Wang Yanshi-san came over and was about to put his hand on her shoulder and put it on her back. But at this time, he remembered that she was a woman. He could not help but withdraw his hand and stared at her with a strange face. How many days has it been? I actually forgot that you're a woman. When these words came out, the people supporting her couldn't help but be startled. Their eyes fell on the figure in green at the same time, and their hearts were shocked. This person was a woman. Fengjiu glanced at him and said, I don't think you've treated me as a woman along the way. Who asked you to be so powerful that you don't seem like a woman? Wang Yanshi-san grinned and said, forget it, I originally wanted to bring you to see the world, but it seems like I can go by myself. Brothel. What? Wang Yanshi-san glanced at her, brothel. Do you think I'd go to that kind of place? Only those without status go to brothels. Those with status go to brothel now. Hearing this, she was slightly surprised. You've been there. Is there one in this city? Brothel of beauties can be found in every city. As long as there is a city, there will be a brothel of beauties. Tell me, how can there not be one here? Wang Yanshi-san laughed loudly and winked at her. Moreover, the beauties here are all unique. But they don't use their beauty to attract people. Every one of them has exquisite skills. What do you think? Are you interested? Shall I bring you to see? Hearing this, Fengjiu said to the people behind him, "You guys find an inn to stay in." Yes. The few of them responded. After thinking for a while, they said, "Senior, we'll go to the biggest inn in the city." If the two seniors come back, we'll go directly to the biggest inn in the city. We'll prepare a room for the two seniors. Okay. Fengjiu responded and followed Wang Yanshi-san to find out where Brothel of Beauties was. Behind her, two tiger beasts that looked like kittens followed closely. Their cute appearance attracted many women on the street to look. The two of them found out where Brothel of Beauties was. When they were let in, Wang Yanshi-san looked at Fengjiu with a fawning expression. "Go, pay the entrance fee. You have the nerve make you go out make women pay." Although she said that, she still followed that person in to go inside to pay. Behind her, Wang Yanshi-san, "I'm poor. I'm rich." As he said that, he looked around and saw many female cultivators, as well as some young ladies from families with veils on their faces. He couldn't help but ask in surprise, "Why are there so many women here today?" The maidservant leading the way smiled, "The two of you came at the right time. Tonight is our Brothel of Beauty's annual evaluation. Tonight, no matter if you're a female cultivator or a young lady from a noble family, you can participate in the evaluation. As long as you win, you'll receive a generous reward from Brothel of Beauties, and you'll also be known as the number one beauty." Ha ha ha, looks like we came at the right time today. We can actually see this. This money is worth it, it's worth it. He laughed loudly and strode inside. Chapter 30-40. After Fengjiu sat down, he listened to the beautiful sound of the zither coming from the center of the round stage. He felt that the sound of the zither was like pearls falling on a jade plate, melodious and pleasing to the ear. Even if he couldn't see the woman playing the zither, he could imagine the beauty of the woman from the beautiful sound of the zither. There were no less than 1,000 people in the building, but no one made any noise. Even if there were people talking, they only lowered their voices and whispered. Hearing the sound of the zither and looking at the scene in the building, Fengjiu couldn't help but praise, "This place is really not bad." Not bad, there was beauty to admire, and there was such a beautiful zither sound. Even though there were many people, the atmosphere here was very good. There was no noise or clamor, it was very suitable to come here and relax. Let me tell you, if you are judged as the number one beauty in Beauty House, it will spread everywhere. Because the evaluation had not started yet, there were only beauties playing the zither in the building, so Wang Yanshi-san gestured for her to follow, and brought her to the other side. "Look here, there is a name on it. It will show which city, which family's daughter, or the woman in Beauty House is judged as the number one beauty. Once these beauties are known, many aristocratic families will come to propose marriage. It can be said that once a person's beauty is judged, the imperial family's grandson, duke, marquis, and minister will want to marry her." Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. "No wonder there are so many women competing. Hee, but I feel that if you participate, you will definitely be able to take first place." He winked at her and smiled. "How about it? Do you want me to help you sign up?" "Not interested." She shook her head. She really wasn't interested in this kind of evaluation. This evaluation is not only about beauty, but also about beauty, talent, strength, and wisdom. Let's go. It will probably start soon. So many people have signed up, but not everyone can go on stage. Those who can go on stage are considered very outstanding. As he spoke, he brought Fengjiu back to the front row and sat down. Following the appearance of the beauties on stage, the talent competition also began. The two listened and watched from below the stage, and felt that the women on the round stage were very pleasing to the eye, elegant and charming. They used light veils to cover their faces, and their clothes couldn't be seen. They could only faintly see their figures, but even so, it was enough to make the people in the building very excited. The two tiger beasts lay in Fengzhou's arms, and while they were resting, the song and dance started. The lights on the stage changed, and the light in the building dimmed, causing everyone's eyes and attention on the round stage. The round stage. Looking Fengzhou's, who was in red in the forest, and unconscious beauties SSSS, SSSSS, 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 SSS, TUS, they, SS's, SSS. In the forest. A while ago, there was a beauty in red who was seriously injured and fainted. That's this, the male tiger whispered. Chapter 30:41. Master didn't say he was looking for the red-clothed beauty. It said in a low voice, but it didn't dare to say more. It just said, and I didn't know Master was looking for the red-clothed beauty. Fengzhou couldn't help but touch his forehead and asked, then what happened? What happened to the red-clothed beauty? Was she saved by someone? When I noticed her, she was being chased by several evil cultivators. At that time, she was seriously injured and looked like she was about to fall. At that time, I thought that if she fell, I would drag her back to the cave. Who knew that when she couldn't hold on and fell, a man in white appeared and saved her? A man in white. Fengzhou was slightly startled. Yes, a human man in white. That man was very cold and his aura was very strong. I didn't dare to approach him. At that time, I heard those evil cultivators exclaim and say something about Sword Master Xiaoyao. Then, they were killed by that man in white. Speaking of this, it shrunk its neck. That man also found me at that time and glanced at me. I saw that man was very dangerous, so I ran away first. Sword Master Xiaoyao. Wanyan Shisan whispered, isn't that the sect master of the Xiaoyao sect? It is said that that person's whereabouts have always been erratic. If he is not in closed-door cultivation, he will disappear. How could he go to the forest and save Qianhua? Sect master of the Xiaoyao sect. Isn't that an old man? Fengzhou asked. No one knows how old that sword master Xiaoyao is. However, one thing is certain. He is definitely not within 100 years old. That person's strength is unfathomable. Furthermore, he rarely shows himself. Even I have only seen him from afar once many years ago in a large gathering. Wanyan Shisan said and breathed a sigh of relief. If he was saved by that sword master Xiaoyao, then there is no need to worry. That sword master Xiaoyao is a righteous person. Qianhua will be fine with him. That's good. Fengzhou smiled and rubbed the tiger beast's head. If you had told us earlier, we wouldn't have to worry. While the two were chatting below the stage, the competition on the stage also continued, and gradually entered the final segment. The two saw a beautiful woman in her 30s come forward and say to the crowd, ladies and gentlemen, everyone has just appreciated the various talents. Next up is the competition of beauty. Today, not only are there beauties from our building, there are also some young ladies from aristocratic families. Who will be this year's #1 beauty? Let's wait and see. As soon as she finished speaking, she reached out and clapped her hands 3 times. The bead curtain on the round stage was rolled up, and the last 12 women stood on the stage in order. They still wore veils on their faces, and in their hands were the musical instruments from the previous competition. Some were dressed luxuriously, some were dressed simply, and some dare. Why is there a woman dressed like that standing on the stage? For a moment, everyone's gazes fell on a woman in a shabby dress with a piece of cloth on her face as a veil. All of them were somewhat dissatisfied. What they wanted to see were beauties. Why was there a woman who looked like a beggar on the stage? Moreover, she had become one of the 12 people. The other women on the stage either distanced themselves from her or avoided her. It was as if they were afraid of touching her. However, that woman stood there quietly with a zither in her arms. She was not frightened, nor was she flustered. It was as if the person everyone was talking about was not her. Chapter 30-42. She's not weak either. She's young, but she's already at the peak of the golden elixir realm. She's comparable to the daughters of the aristocratic families. That's not right. Just this calmness and composure is something that the daughters of the aristocratic families can't compare to. Wanyan Shirsan said, stroking his chin and chuckling, I wonder how she looks. Fengjiu watched with a slight smile on her lips. She looked at that woman, then her gaze swept past the other women, waiting for the moment when they removed their veils. At this moment, she couldn't help but be curious. What would that woman look like? All right, everyone. Our beauty's restaurant has never cared about background. As long as you have the ability, you can participate. This is the rule of the beauty's restaurant. Everyone, look at this beauty. Whether it's her figure, temperament, or cultivation, they're all top-notch. If she were to change into a luxurious dress, would you still think that she's a beauty? The woman in her 30s covered her mouth and smiled, saying, next, let them remove their veils and reveal their faces. In addition to the 10 judges in our restaurant, the guests sitting in the first row can each cast a vote. As she spoke, she retreated to the side and gestured for the first woman to remove her veil and reveal her face to the crowd. This was the last segment of the competition. It was also an extremely important segment to determine whether a person was a beauty or not. Even the daughters of aristocratic families could only remove their veils here. After the first woman removed her veil, she raised her head confidently and looked forward. The women behind her also removed their veils one by one. Every time a woman's veil was removed, it was met with a wave of cheers from below. Until the last woman, who was the woman in plain clothes, removed her veil. In an instant, there was a wave of gasps from below the stage. Some people even lost their self-control and stood up. Their eyes were fixed on the stunningly beautiful woman on the stage. The woman was dressed in a plain and shabby gray dress. Compared to the other women, she really looked like a beggar on the street. However, the moment she removed her veil, her exquisite facial features and unique temperament made people unable to take their eyes off her. Especially the enchanting red flower in the corner of her left eye, which added a bit of mystery and coldness to her. Beauty number 12 is really beautiful. Not bad. She's even more beautiful than the jade beauty in the beauty's restaurant last year. It's a pity that she's only wearing a shabby dress. If she were to change into a gorgeous dress, how magnificent would she be? Who is this woman? Is she also from this city? Why haven't I heard of her before? I'm going to propose marriage to this beauty and bring her home. Haha, that's right. She's a beauty at the peak of the golden elixir realm. She's definitely qualified to enter my Chen family. For a moment, the people below the stage were talking about it. They were already planning to find someone to propose marriage to that girl and bring her home. Listening to the words of the gorgeously dressed men below, the woman on the stage didn't even change her expression. She just stood there quietly, narrowed her eyes, and hugged the zither in her arms tightly. Chapter 30-43. What's interesting? Wanyan Shirsan asked. He looked at the woman holding the zither and praised, the flower at the corner of this woman's eyes adds a lot of charm. It's very unique. Fengjiu smiled and did not answer. He just looked at the crowd's evaluation. In the end, the woman holding the zither won first place. Miss, what's your name? The woman in her 30s on the stage asked with a smile. When she participated, she only took a number and did not write down her name. Where's my reward? The woman did not say her name and only asked. It's here. The woman in the building asked someone to bring the reward and said with a smile, there's a third-rank chi nourishing pill, a spiritual medicine, and 1,000 gold coins. The woman took the things and put them in her sleeves, saying, "Thank you." Then, she held the zither and walked off the stage. "Hey, miss, your name." The woman did not even leave her name and left. Many people let the guards follow her, wanting to see what family the woman was from. Fengjiu patted the two tiger beasts' heads and said, "Go. Let's go and see." The two tiger beasts jumped out of her arms and quickly went into the crowd and left. Seeing this, Wang Yanshi-san felt a little strange. Why did you let them follow that woman? Don't tell me you're really interested in her. You're a woman. Fengjiu did not say anything. He just watched the women on the stage leave. In the end, the woman in the beauty building played a song for the crowd. Some people even went on the stage to compete with the beauties. The scene gradually became lively, but he was not in the mood to continue watching. It's getting late. Let's go back, Fengjiu said. He stood up and walked out. This beauty building should be a place to gather information. It was mainly women and gathered all kinds of people. Moreover, they were scattered in various cities. It seemed that this force was also very big. But who was it? After leaving the beauty building, Wang Yanshi-san stretched and said, "I originally wanted to book a room in the building and call 2 beauties to serve me. I didn't expect it to become a competition. I don't even know the name of the most beautiful one. Hey, why do I feel like I lost out tonight?" On the way back to the inn, he was still talking about it. Fengjiu could not bear it and said directly, "How about I find 2 beauties to serve you tonight? I'm not a person who likes beauties. I just think." He wanted to say more, but when he saw Fengjiu's glance, he could not help but swallow his words. This little girl's gaze was enough to scare people to death. He really didn't know which man could stand her. "Senior, you're back. Have you eaten? I'll ask the waiter to prepare some food for you." The 2 women saw the 2 of them come in and hurriedly greeted them. "Send them to the room," Fengjiu said. He walked upstairs and asked, "Which room am I in?" "The first room on the left." The woman then said to Wang Yanshi-san, "Senior is in the second room." After seeing the 2 of them enter their rooms, the 2 women could not help but look at each other. They asked the waiter to bring them food and then went to the other 2 rooms to see their senior. Chapter 30-44. The tiger beast paused, then continued, "But those people were shaken off by that woman, but they didn't discover me." It raised its head proudly and wagged its tail. "You stayed there to keep watch, then came back to report." Fengjiu looked at it amusedly, reaching out to pat its head. "Yes, master. That woman used the money she won to buy medicine. She also gave the medicine she won to an old man. However, that old man's aura was very weak. He should be dying soon. Also, that woman went back and wiped the flowers off her face. Then, she disguised herself as a man. Let's go. Let's go take a look," Fengjiu said, opening the door and walking out. Only then did she and the tiger beast go out, and Wang Yanshi-san sneakily followed behind them. However, they didn't walk far before Fengjiu discovered them. She stopped and looked back, saying, "If you want to follow me, then walk faster. Why are you sneaking behind me?" The corner of Wang Yanshi-san's mouth twitched, and he walked out from the shadows. "You can discover me like this? You don't see the shadow on the ground?" She glanced at him from the corner of her eyes, then looked towards the shadow on the ground. Hearing this, Wang Yanshi-san chuckled, "I'm getting on in years, and many things aren't as good as before. Look at how careless I can be when following someone." He smiled embarrassedly, and walked to Fengjiu's side. "But, where are you going? Don't tell me you're really going to that beauty's place." Fengjiu didn't say much, and only followed the tiger beast forward, passing through the bustling streets, and walking towards the slums. They came to a large tree, then leaped onto the tree, and under the cover of the large tree, they looked at a dilapidated house not far in front of them. In the dim light, a man dressed in gray was helping an old woman to press on her acupuncture points. There was a scar at the corner of the man's eye, and this scar ruined his delicate face. However, if they had seen this person dressed as a woman tonight, they probably wouldn't have thought that this person in front of them was the woman who won the title of #1 beauty. Right now, she was dressed as a man, and her gray clothes were simple and shabby. Her chest was flat and her waist was wide, and her face was sallow, and that scar, no matter how they looked at it, was so inconspicuous. So there's a scar on her face. She really does look ugly, no wonder she didn't dare to leave her name. Won Yenshir-san said. He thought that he would see a woman dressed as a man, but he didn't expect to see a woman dressed as a man. Thinking, he looked at her, and looked at Fengjiu. This woman is quite clever, and like you, she likes to dress as a man. Clever. Fengjiu smiled slightly, looking at the woman dressed as a man, and said, dressing as a woman, using tricks to cover up the flaws on her face, and winning the reward of Beauty's house, and being able to get away from Beauty's house and those people following her, this person is not just a little clever. Her voice paused, and her eyes flashed, and she said, moreover, not every woman likes to dress as a man. Most of the time, it's just to avoid trouble, and to protect themselves. Hearing this, Won Yenshir-san looked at her, and asked, then why did you let the two divine beasts follow her? Chapter 30-45. Won Yenshir-san stared blankly for a moment before he saw her jump down from the tree and stride towards the house. Behind her was a black and white tiger beast. Seeing this, Won Yenshir-san mumbled to himself and followed her into the house without any ambition. In the house, the woman helped the old woman massage her and said, I'll use my spiritual energy to help you unblock your meridians. Take the chi nurturing pill later and you should be able to get out of bed and walk around in a few days. Miss, I'm just a servant. You don't have to do so much for me. I know that I won't be able to live for much longer. You won those pills with great difficulty. You should keep them for yourself. I won't take them. The old woman on the bed spoke in a weak voice. Her eyes were swollen and her legs were white and swollen. She looked as if she was about to die. The woman only calmly said, I don't need those pills. Don't think about anything else right now. Taking care of your body is the most important thing. As she spoke, she glanced at the little cat that was squatting by the bed and looking at her. She didn't know where this little cat had come from, but from the looks of it, it didn't look like an ordinary cat. Furthermore, it seemed to understand her words. Whenever she spoke, it would listen to her. Miss, I've dragged you down. I. Cough, cough. As the old woman spoke, she suddenly coughed. Blood flowed from the corner of her mouth and her breathing gradually weakened. Seeing this, the woman quickly took out the chi nurturing pill and was about to feed it to her. However, the old woman pulled up the blanket and covered her mouth. She weakly said, Miss, I won't eat it. I won't eat it. You should keep it. I'm about to die. It's a waste to eat something so precious. I won't eat it. I'll leave it for Mississippi, you'll die if you don't eat it. The woman's voice rose slightly, her eyes filled with anxiety. It's good that I'm dead. If I'm dead, miss, you won't have to stay here with this old woman. If I'm dead, miss, you can leave in peace. Miss, when I'm dead, you should go home. That's your father after all. Go home and he'll take care of you. Eat the chi nurturing pill. The woman said as she removed the blanket from the old woman's mouth. Chi nourishing pills can't save her life. Fengjiu's voice slowly drifted out. She was dressed in green as she walked in. She looked at the girl and said, you should know that her lifespan is almost up. Even a chi nourishing pill cannot save her. Master. The tiger beast man squatting by the bed called out happily and quickly came to her feet. Hearing the kitten speak, the woman's expression changed slightly. She looked at the Fengjiu and asked coldly, "Who are you people? What are you doing here?" Fengjiu chuckled and said, "Don't be nervous, I don't have any bad intentions. It's just that my residence is short of people, and I happen to see that Miss is intelligent, meticulous, and cautious in handling matters, so I thought to ask if Miss is interested in working in my residence. Unfortunately, I overheard your conversation outside. It seems that this lady is a young lady." As she spoke, she paused for a moment before continuing with a smile, "That's how it should be. After all, Mrs. Zither's skills can be said to be unparalleled, and your appearance is not something that ordinary people can compare to. How could you possibly be a girl from an ordinary family?" Chapter 3046. "Don't worry, I said I have no ill intentions," Fengjiu said with a smile. She glanced at the old woman and said to the woman, "It seems that I came at a bad time. How about this? Think about it carefully. If you have nowhere to go in the future, you can come to the Feng family in Four Corner City to find me. My surname is Feng." With that, she didn't stay any longer. Instead, she turned and walked out. Seeing this, Wan Yanshur-san touched his chin and walked out in a daze. When he was outside, he asked with some confusion, "You said that? You're leaving just like that? Didn't you say you liked that woman?" Fengjiu glanced back at him and said with a smile, "What? Do you think I'll rob her? Even if you don't have to force her, you should at least say something enticing to let her know what benefits there are for her to follow you. At the very least, you should tell her that you're a woman, so that she won't think you're after her beauty." Wan Yanshur-san rolled his eyes at her and said, "You just said that the manor is short of people and told her to come to the Feng family in Four Corner City to find you when she has nowhere to go in the future. Do you think she will go? In my opinion, you came here for nothing tonight." Fengjiu chuckled and shook her head. "Do you think she really got rid of the people from the beauty pavilion?" Hearing this, Wan Yanshur-san was startled and asked, "You mean, the people from the beauty pavilion are still watching her? But, didn't they say she got rid of them? How?" Before he finished speaking, he paused. "Yes, the forces of the beauty pavilion were distributed in various cities, and there were people in charge of the beauty pavilion. In addition to beauties, there were also many masters. As long as they investigated, how could they not find out that this woman was hiding here?" Seeing her walk back and forth, he couldn't help but quickly follow and stare at her with a strange expression. This evildoer, she wouldn't be waiting for that woman to have no way out before she made her move, right? Walking on the street, because the night was getting darker, there were not many pedestrians on the street. Only some vendors were packing up. She said, "Now that you have news of my sister, why don't you go back and report it? Do you plan to keep following me?" "Humph, keep following you. Don't forget that they were the ones who asked you to follow me." Wan Yanshur-san sneered. He stared at her and asked, "We've known each other for so long, but you still haven't told me who CK and Muaxian are to you. Why did the two of them keep telling me to take good care of you? Do they know how perverted you are?" "The two of them are my disciples," Fengjiu said, glancing at him. Seeing the shock on his face, he asked with a smile, "What? You don't believe me?" "I don't." Wan Yanshur-san shook his head and said, "Both of them are heavenly gods. How can they be your disciples? Don't be so ridiculous. Don't ask me if you don't believe me. You won't believe me anyway." She yawned and said, "I'm tired. I need to go back and have a good sleep. If I don't leave my room tomorrow, don't disturb me." As soon as she finished speaking, her figure flashed and disappeared from the street. The two tiger beasts were stunned for a moment, but they quickly followed her, leaving Wan Yanshur-san walking alone on the street. Chapter 3047. The next morning, two female disciples sent breakfast to their senior brothers. Seeing that their bodies were much better after a day of rest, they were relieved and smiled. Have the two seniors woken up yet? A male disciple asked. They haven't woken up yet. They haven't moved, but they've hung a sign on the door, telling us not to disturb them. The female disciple with the surname Mu said. Hearing this, several people paused for a moment. Someone asked, "Who are these two people?" "I don't know. I've never seen them before. They shouldn't be from our sect," the two women said. Both of them look very strong, especially the senior in green. Yesterday, the senior said that she's a woman. One of them hesitated and looked at the others. Do you think that the senior in green is really a woman? Can a woman be that strong? I can't tell. But since that senior said so, it shouldn't be wrong. The few of them were talking. Seeing that the cold-looking man didn't speak, one of them asked, "Senior Brother Chin, what are you thinking about?" The man looked over and glanced at them. Then, he shifted his gaze to the window and said, "When I woke up this morning, I released a signal. If there are any disciples of our immortal sect nearby, they will rush over. Later, when you go downstairs, take a look and pay more attention. Aren't we following the two seniors? If the two seniors find out that we're secretly contacting other disciples of the sect, won't they be angry?" One of them said worriedly. "Probably not. After all, we're not contacting other people. We're just disciples of the sect." "All right then. I'll go downstairs and take a look," one of the women said and left first. "Junior Sister Mu, you should leave too. Pay more attention to the movements of those two," the man with the surname Chin instructed. "Got it, Senior Brother Chin," the woman replied and left. Wanyan Shirsan slept until noon. When he woke up and washed up, he realized that Fengjiu was still asleep. He wanted to wake her up, but when he thought of her instructions last night, he shrugged and ignored her. He just asked the waiter to serve some food and wine. However, he was surprised to see that the disciples of the immortal sect were sitting on the first floor and eating. Among them, there were two disciples wearing the robes of the Blue Star Immortal Sect. Senior is awake." The few people downstairs greeted Wanyan Shirsan when they saw him. "I'm awake," Wanyan Shirsan replied and nodded at them. Then, he followed them downstairs and sat at a table. "Senior, these two people are disciples of the Immortal Sect. They just happen to be in this city," a woman said as she looked at the two disciples on the side. "Senior Wanyan." When the two of them saw Wanyan 13, they immediately bowed respectfully. "You know me." Wanyan Shirsan's tea. Shirsan. As they were not core disciples, they were not as strong as the people around them. Therefore, they could only address Wanyan Qianhua as Shirsan and not Senior Sister. They paused and one of them asked, "Senior Wanyan must have come here to ask about Shirsan. I wonder if Senior has any news about our Shirsan." Chapter 30-48. When they heard this, surprise flashed across their eyes. "There's news about Uncle Master Wanyan." "There is, but why should I tell you?" Wanyan Shirsan glanced at them and poured himself a glass of wine. He looked as if he was going to piss them off, and the disciples were stunned. Why didn't he tell them? They wouldn't do anything to Uncle Master Wanyan. "Waiter, are my dishes ready?" "Why are they so slow?" Wanyan Shirsan shouted impatiently. Coming. The waiter answered and brought out the dishes. He put the dishes on the table and said to Wanyan Shirsan, "Sir, please eat these two dishes first. The others will be served soon." After saying this, the waiter left. Wanyan Shirsan picked up his chopsticks and knocked on the table. He glanced at them and said unhappily, "Why are you all staring at me? What are you doing that you shouldn't be doing?" When they heard this, they returned to their rooms to rest and recuperate. As for Fengzhou, she didn't leave until evening. However, the two tiger beasts behind her didn't follow her. When Wan Yanshi-san saw that the two tiger beasts had disappeared, he asked, "You sent them out?" "Yes," Fengzhou replied. She went to the first floor and ordered a few dishes and a bottle of wine. While waiting for the dishes to be served, she sensed that someone was looking at her. She followed the gaze and saw that it was two men wearing the robes of immortal sect disciples. She raised her eyebrows and asked, "What's up with those two? Where did they come from?" "They said that they happened to meet them in the city." Wan Yanshi-san smiled and looked at Fengzhou with a faint smile. "I reckon that those people were curious about your identity. I heard that they were disciples who were training outside and hadn't returned to the immortal sect for a long time. So, when they met those two disciples, they must have asked about you." "Oh, I see." She nodded, indicating that she understood. Judging from the two men's expressions, they probably couldn't recognize her. After all, she had disguised her appearance and wasn't wearing a dazzling red dress. Even CK and Mu Axian wouldn't be able to recognize her if they were here. In the room upstairs, a few people looked at the two disciples and asked, "Who is that Qin Yi? Do you recognize him?" The two disciples shook their heads and said, "I've never seen him before. I can't recognize him." "Impossible," one of the men said. After thinking for a while, he continued, "That green-robed senior must have changed her appearance. When I heard them talking, that senior Wan Yan said that she was a woman. I don't know. I can't recognize it." The two shook their heads. Upon hearing this, the man with the surname Qin asked with a solemn expression, "Did anything major happen in the sect after we left?" "Something big." When the two heard this, they hesitated and didn't know what to say. Of course, something big had happened during this period of time. Furthermore, it was something that had shaken the entire sect. Apart from the disciples who were training outside, it could be said that almost everyone in the sect knew about it. "Speak. Stop hemming and hawing," he said coldly. Chapter 30-49. Hearing this, they were slightly startled. Venerable CK and Venerable Mu Axian lost. And they even acknowledged the winner as their master. Yes, and at that time, it was 2 against 2. Hence, the two of them had 2 different masters. The disciple said, Who are they?" Everyone knew that Venerable CK and Venerable Mu Axian were the strongest venerables in the immortal sect. They were divine realm experts, so how could they lose to others? "One is Fengzhou, and the other is Xianyuan Mose," the disciple said carefully in a low voice. They didn't dare to call the masters of CK and Mu Axian by their names. One of them likes to wear red, while the other likes to wear black. I heard that the one in red is a woman, and she's also an alchemy venerable. They're a pair, and they came down from the immortal ascension stairs. Without a guide, one can only reach the top of the immortal ascension stairs with the strength of an immortal emperor. They were able to defeat Venerable CK and Venerable Mu Axian, so they're not ordinary. The few of them sighed. They were very curious about the two people. However, none of them thought that the woman in red was the same as Feng 9. After all, they had never heard them call Feng 9 by her name ever since they started following them. They went downstairs and saw that she had finished eating, so they asked, "Senior, when are we leaving?" They had been resting the whole day. If they had taken the airship, they could have recuperated on the airship, so they wouldn't waste time here. "Are you in a hurry?" Fengzhou glanced at them. Hearing this, the few of them were slightly stunned. One of them saw her tone and said, "There's no hurry. We just thought that if we were to set off, we could pack our things and make arrangements in advance. If Senior has something to deal with here, you can go ahead and do it." "Who told you that I have something to do?" Fengzhou looked at the man playfully. When the man's face turned red and he became nervous, she smiled and said, "Aren't you injured? Take a good rest here. We haven't had much rest along the way. How can we just stay for one night in such a good inn?" Her voice was neither fast nor slow, with a hint of a smile and teasing. "Moreover, I don't even need to pay to stay in such a good inn. It's worth it. What's the harm in staying for 2 more days?" Hearing this, the corners of everyone's mouths twitched. So she didn't leave because this inn was the most expensive and largest in the city, and she didn't have to pay for it. What kind of reason was this? Indeed, there were many eccentric experts. At this moment, one of the tiger beasts rushed in like the wind. Like a flash of light, it pounced into Fengjiu's arms. Seeing this, the others couldn't help but be surprised. Was it those 2 divine beasts? Just as they were about to see what the 2 inconspicuous divine beasts were up to, they saw the green-robed senior glance at them. Seeing this, they tactfully bowed and took their leave. "Master, that old woman couldn't make it and died this morning. That woman was caught by the people from Beauty Restaurant when she was about to leave." The tiger beast lay in Fengjiu's arms and whispered. Wanyan Shirsan heard this and couldn't help but glance at Fengjiu. This girl had really calculated it. But what was she going to do now? Chapter 30-50. Yes. The tiger beast responded and leaped outside. "Just let the 2 of them go. Will it work?" Wanyan Shirsan asked. He felt that although the 2 were mythological beasts, they were no match for the experts of Beauty's restaurant. Fengjiu drank the wine and said, "Let's wait and see first. There's no rush. If you want to subdue a person, you have to wait until she has no way out. What's more, that woman is a little arrogant, so it's good to wear her down. My sister, do you want to go to the Carefree sect to take a look?" She looked at Wanyan Shirsan and asked. "In fact, there are also children of my Wanyan family in the Carefree sect. After learning the news, I have already sent a message to my family and asked them to send someone to take a look. As for Master Qianhua, I have also sent a message to her. You don't have to worry about this." Wanyan Shirsan said, and then said, "By the way, I also told the people of Blue Star Immortal Sect that the disciples upstairs are with us. They have already sent someone to pick us up." Fengjiu played with the wine glass, and no one knew what he was thinking. When Wanyan Shirsan saw this, he grinned and asked, "We have gained something from this trip. In any case, I am your 13th uncle. Tell me, when we go back, shouldn't you invite me to your house for a meal?" Hearing this, Fengjiu glanced at him and said coldly, "You are my sister's 13th uncle. My sister and I have become sworn sisters, but I don't recognize the other members of the Wanyan family as relatives. Sigh, forget about others, but we have fought side by side. I am also an elder. It's not too much for you to call me 13th uncle." Fengjiu looked at him up and down and said with a playful smile, 13th uncle. Sigh. What are you sigh about? Look at you, how do you look like an elder? You want me to call you 13th uncle? I don't think it's possible. She shook her head with a look of disgust. The corner of Wanyan Shirsan's mouth twitched. He looked at her speechlessly, but he didn't hesitate and stood up. All right then. I don't expect anything. I know you will definitely go out later, so I will go out by myself. He stood up, stretched and walked out, and asked, by the way, do you need me to buy something for you when I go shopping? Fengjiu looked at him and said with a smile, then I'll have to trouble you to bring me some pastries. No problem. He waved his hand and walked out of the inn. Not long after he left, Fengjiu also left, leaving only a few disciples in the inn's main building who were looking out of the window. You. And the name suits you very well. Even the beauties in my beauty's pavilion can't compare to your zither skills. The middle-aged man's voice paused. He looked at the scar at the corner of her eyes and eyebrows with pity. What a pity, what a pity. A good beauty like you has such a flaw. I didn't expect that the people in my beauty pavilion would make an error in judgment and call you the #1 beauty. What a shame to my beauty pavilion. What do you want? She asked coldly. There was no fear in her eyes. She didn't struggle because she knew that even if she struggled, it would be futile. Everyone here was stronger than her. Chapter 30:51. He looked at her and stared at the scar between her eyebrows, saying, with your looks, it's impossible for you to appear in front of others, so you can only be a Gucci player behind the scenes. From today onwards, you're a member of our beauty house. He paused and narrowed his eyes with a hint of danger. However, in order to punish you for scheming against our beauty house, we're going to imprint a slave mark on your face. I'm sure you don't have any objections, right? As he spoke, he waved his hand and signaled for someone to bring over the slave mark. As long as this mark was imprinted on her face, it would be branded as a slave mark that would never be removed for the rest of her life. Seeing a cultivator bring over the slave mark, Qin Xian's eyes finally showed a trace of panic. You have no right to do this. I can return the prize to you. Hee, do you think our beauty house is short of something like that? The middle-aged man sneered and stared at her. This is the price you have to pay for scheming against our beauty house. I want you to know that there are some people you can't provoke or scheme against. Seeing the middle-aged man take the slave mark from another cultivator and approach her step by step, she couldn't help but struggle. However, she couldn't break free from the cultivator's restraints as she was forcefully held down. You also have a scar on your face, so I'll imprint a slave mark on your forehead. As the middle-aged man spoke, he lifted a strand of her hair that had fallen to one side and was about to imprint the mark on her forehead. Roar! The tiger beast that had been squatting on the fence for a long time suddenly roared and its small body pounced down. It raised its sharp claws and clawed at the middle-aged man holding the mark. Hiss! The middle-aged man gasped in pain and blood seeped out of his hand, causing the mark in his hand to fall to the ground. Just as he retreated, the tiger beast waved its sharp claws at the cultivators holding down Qin Xian. Seeing an opportunity, Qin Xian broke free from their restraints and quickly got up and retreated to the side. She looked at the tiger beast in surprise and recognized the kitten-like pet beast as the man in green robes. But, didn't they leave already? Why was this kitten still following her here? Where did this little beast come from? Kill it for me. The middle-aged man held his injured hand and ordered fiercely. In an instant, the surrounding cultivators surrounded them, forcing the man and beast into a corner. Looking at the humans who were walking towards it with weapons in hand, the tiger beast let out a low roar. In the next moment, its body rapidly expanded and returned to its original powerful size. Roar! A beastly roar came out and shook the entire beauty pavilion. Everyone in the city heard the beastly roar. After all, the roar of a divine beast was very loud. Almost as soon as the roar came out, the cultivators in the small city were startled, especially some small pets and small beasts. They all trembled and hid in the bosom of their masters, or trembled and knelt on the ground. God divine beast! The middle-aged man was startled. He quickly retreated and looked at the mythological beast that had suddenly returned to its original form. His eyes widened in shock. Hiss! It really was a divine beast. Moreover, it was a tiger-type divine beast of the 6th order. Where did he come from? Chapter 30:52. Quick! Capture this divine beast. I'll reward you handsomely, he said excitedly as he stepped back, allowing the other cultivators to step forward. However, at this moment, an untimely voice sounded in everyone's ears. How lively! Hearing this voice, the tiger beast that was baring its fangs and flashing its claws and was about to pounce forward suddenly became as docile as a kitten. It wagged its tail and came to the corner of the wall, looking at its master who was sitting on the wall with excitement in its eyes. Qin Xian was also startled when she heard this voice. She looked at the man in green who had suddenly appeared and her eyes moved slightly. "Who are you?" The middle-aged man's face darkened and he raised his hand to signal everyone to step back. When he saw the divine beast sitting docilely in the corner where the man was sitting, his heart couldn't help but tremble. Fingzhou, who was sitting on the wall, glanced at him and said with a smile that wasn't a smile, "You want to touch my people and capture my little beast, but you still ask who I am? Your people. Your little beast. Hee, this woman is a resident of this city and has lived here for only a few years. This divine beast hasn't been contracted yet, so how can you say that it's yours?" The middle-aged man sneered. When he saw that Fingzhou was alone and was about to order his men to attack, he caught a glimpse of a black and white kitten in her arms from the corner of his eye. His heart couldn't help but jump. Another divine beast. The one just now also looked like this. "I have another one here, I wonder if it's also yours." Fingzhou smiled and patted the tiger beast in her arms. The tiger beast lying in her arms jumped down and with a flash of light, it returned to its original size. The divine beast's body was huge and strong, and the tiger beast's body was even more majestic and domineering. When these two fierce tigers with white fur and black tiger stripes stood in front of them, the divine beast's powerful aura filled the air and shocked them greatly. A divine beast was already extremely rare, let alone a tiger beast that was the king of beasts. And there were two of them. Looking at the two tiger beasts, the middle-aged man was so excited that his eyes turned red and greed emerged in his eyes. Qi Naxian saw the greed in the middle-aged man's eyes and couldn't help but worry. She couldn't bear to let a completely unrelated young master offend a power like the beauty pavilion for her, so she immediately said, "Young master, leave quickly. The beauty brothel's influence is enormous, far beyond what young master can imagine. Young master, please don't get into trouble for Qi Naxian." Hearing this, Fingzhou looked at Qi Naxian and smiled. He didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at the middle-aged man and asked jokingly, "Did you see it clearly? Are these two divine beasts yours?" The middle-aged man's eyes flashed with killing intent. He stared at Fingzhou and said gloomily, "It's a divine beast that sneaked out of our beauty house. You brat! How dare you covet our beauty pavilion's divine beast? Someone come! Kill this brat on the spot." Qi Naxian was shocked and her face turned pale. However, when she raised her head to look at the azure-robed man, she saw that he was still sitting leisurely on the wall. "Kill him on the spot. That's a good idea." Chapter 3053. What are you doing? Quickly let him go. Let him go and you can still live. Otherwise, only death awaits you. The surrounding cultivators shouted, all of them staring at Fingzhou, their swords drawn, ready to strike at any time. However, Fingzhou glanced at them indifferently, tightening his grip on the middle-aged man's neck. "You think I don't dare to kill you?" Her voice was slow and gentle, but it made people shiver. "If you kill me, you won't be able to live either." The middle-aged man was not afraid, as if he was sure that she would not dare to kill him. Even though his throat was being choked, making it hard for him to breathe, he still forced out each word. Fingzhou raised an eyebrow, and with a wave of his sleeve, Swallow Cloud roared and leapt out from the void, like a king standing in the middle, looking down on the surrounding cultivators. When his sharp and bloodthirsty gaze landed on the two tiger beasts, he paused. Hiss! Super, sacred beast. This is a sacred beast. Heavens! I actually saw a sacred beast. There really is a sacred beast in this world. The cultivators gasped in shock, the sacred beast's aura caused their legs to tremble, and they could not help but retreat. In this small backyard, there were two sacred beasts and a sacred beast. Even if they wanted to destroy the beauty's restaurant, no one would be able to stop them. When he saw another sacred beast appear, the middle-aged man started to panic, his face turned pale, and his arms hung limply. Because of this, his entire body was lifted up by Fengjiu, as if he was choking on his breath. If there were two sacred beasts, perhaps he could still try to take this man down, but with another sacred beast, he knew that he had offended someone he should not have offended. What kind of person would have two sacred beasts and a sacred beast? How could he offend such a person? How could he give the order to kill him? Thinking of this, his face turned ashen. Young master, please spare my life," he said with difficulty, his eyes filled with fear. "Spare your life? Don't you think it's too late?" Fengjiu tightened her grip, and with a crack, she broke his neck. With a groan, the middle-aged man stopped breathing on the spot. His eyes were wide open in fear as he stared ahead. Fengjiu raised his hand and threw the man away. Bang! The body was thrown in the middle of the yard, but no one dared to step forward. They just stepped back step by step. Two divine beasts, one sacred beast, in addition to this person's unfathomable strength, who would dare to go forward to seek death. Qi Naxian stared blankly at the azure-robed man. She didn't expect that he would actually kill the middle-aged man. That man was the manager of the beauty house. Now that he killed the middle-aged man, she was afraid that the people of the beauty house would not let him go. "Young master." An old voice sounded at this moment. When the guards in the courtyard heard this voice, they couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Fengjiu looked towards the direction of the voice and saw a few old men walking out quickly. When they saw the body in the courtyard, their eyes narrowed and their eyebrows furrowed. "Young master, why did you kill people in our beauty house?" As they spoke, the old man's eyes quietly looked towards the two sacred beasts and the sacred beast. Even though he had heard the guards mention it, he was still shocked. Chapter 3054. Your people from Beauty's pavilion captured my people, and even said that my little beast was from your Beauty's pavilion, and wanted to take it by force. You even gave the order to kill me to silence me. What, can't I kill him? Her clear eyes were cold as she looked at them. Her voice was soft, but it made the hearts of the people in Beauty's pavilion tremble. They could faintly feel the other party's killing intent. Or, if I kill him, you will also issue a kill order to me. If that's the case, I won't introduce you. Her lips curled up as she glanced at them with a smile that wasn't a smile. Hearing this, how could the elders not understand her meaning? The other party had 3 powerful divine beasts here and their strength was unfathomable. If they offended this person for the sake of a dead person, they were afraid that they wouldn't be able to predict what would happen in the end. Even if they wanted to make a move against this person, they would have to report it to their superiors and have them send someone down. At this moment, they looked at each other and one of them smiled. Young master is joking. That manager is usually a bit overbearing. If he has offended young master in any way, please don't take offense. So you're saying that I can take this person away? Fengjiu raised his eyebrows as he looked at them. He, of course, young master's person will naturally be taken away by young master. The elder said with a smile. So you're saying that these 2 divine beasts didn't come from your Beauty's pavilion? She glanced at them with a smile that wasn't a smile. The elder wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and smiled. Young master is joking. These divine beasts naturally belong to young master. Hearing this, Fengjiu brushed his sleeves and put the swallow cloud back into his space. He turned around and walked out. The 2 divine beasts behind him turned back into 2 kittens and swaggered out while wagging their tails. Qi Naxian paused for a moment and glanced at the people from Beauty's pavilion before leaving as well. After they left, the elders looked at each other and said to the cultivators around them, "Clean up and give him a proper burial." Yes. The cultivators responded and carried the corpse away. What do you think? One of the elders asked the other 2. The other 2 stroked their beards and pondered. They said, this person is definitely not an ordinary person. He has 2 divine beasts and a sacred beast by his side. I'm afraid that he won't be easy to deal with. If we fight against him, I think that he will be a formidable opponent. That may be the case, but this person killed the manager of our beauty pavilion. His actions are indeed arrogant. If we don't pursue the matter, wouldn't it be? Investigate. How to investigate? Now, who in our building dares to go against him? From the way I see it, it was not easy for us to send this person away. All we have lost is that manager. It is best to keep this matter under wraps. Otherwise, it will not benefit our beauty house at all if this matter blows up. Since that's the case, let's report this matter to the higher-ups. As for how to deal with it, that will depend on the arrangements of the higher-ups. What we need to do now is to investigate this person's background before we know what to do next. Several people discussed in the backyard. Not long after, they each took action to arrange things. On the other side, Chin Exayan followed the two little beasts out of Beauty's pavilion. From time to time, she would look at the figure walking in front of her. She wanted to say something, but she didn't know where to start, so she just followed quietly. Chapter 30:55. Young Master saved me. As long as young master doesn't despise Chin Exayan for being ugly, Chin Exayan is willing to stay by young master's side. She looked at the man in green in front of her. This was the first time she said such words to a man. Her ears were faintly burning. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. Have you thought it through? Yes. Now that she was all alone, where else could she go? Go to that clan. No, she would never step into that clan. She would never acknowledge them. All right. I'll take you to buy 2 sets of clothes to change into, Fengjiu said as he walked forward. Chin Exayan was startled for a moment before following behind him. When she arrived at the inn after buying 2 sets of clothes, she was sent to a side room to change. She took the clothes into the room and walked to the prepared hot water. She was in a daze as she sat beside the tub in a daze for a while. Only then did she take off her clothes and soak herself in the water. Downstairs, Fengjiu was drinking wine and eating appetizers when he saw Wang Yanshi-san come in with a few boxes of pastries. Supper. Not bad, I'll accompany you for a drink or two. He placed the pastries on the table and said, Here, have a taste of these pastries. I asked someone and went to the best pastry shop in the city to buy them. Thank you, Fengjiu said with a smile. He first put away the pastries and poured a cup of wine for him. Drink a few cups and rest early. We'll be on our way tomorrow. It had been a few days since they left. She really missed little Hao, at home. You're going back. You've settled the matter. You got that woman? Wang Yanshi-san asked in surprise. Fengjiu rolled his eyes. What do you mean by got that woman? You make it sound like a bandit. She took a sip of wine and a bite of appetizers before saying, I brought her back. I even killed the manager of beauty restaurant. Cough, cough. Wang Yanshi-san, who was drinking, choked when he heard this. He patted his chest and coughed twice. He stared at Fengjiu and said, You said you killed the manager of Beauty Pavilion? Yes, Fengjiu replied. You don't have to worry. It's fine. He glared at her and said, Aren't you a little too bold? I already told you that the Beauty Pavilion is very powerful. There are beauty pavilions in every city. You actually went to provoke them. Are you tired of living? Young master. Chin Exayan came down from the 2nd floor. She had changed into a blue and white dress. It was simple and elegant. A strand of hair fell down. The scar at the corner of her eye was drawn like a delicate flower. It added a bit of charm to her delicate face. Fengjiu looked at her and nodded with satisfaction. Not bad. You still look pleasing to the eye like this. She nodded and said to her, Sit down and eat with us. Yes. Qi Naxian replied and sat down at the table. She saw Wan Yenshir-san staring at her, but she didn't look at him. She poured a cup of wine and took a sip. Then she picked up some food and ate. You'll leave tomorrow morning. Remember to get up early and prepare. Fengjiu said. Then, as if she remembered something, she said to Wan Yenshir-san, her name is Qi Naxian. Oh. Chapter 3056. Seeing Qin sitting with the two of them, she didn't show any signs of uneasiness. Similarly, she sat there quietly, eating and standing. She was so quiet that she looked like a painting. In addition to that, she had an extraordinary appearance. It had to be said that she was very pleasing to the eyes. After a simple introduction, Qi Naxian ate some food and went back to her room to rest. Fengjiu and Wan Yenshir-san were left drinking. Although her face is disfigured, if it's so well painted, it's still not bad. Aren't you afraid that bringing her around will cause trouble? Wan Yenshir-san looked at her, somewhat unable to understand what she was thinking. What did this woman named Qi Naxian have that made her go through so much trouble? Fengjiu smiled faintly. I've never been a person who's afraid of trouble. Seeing this, he chuckled, that's true. I guess only you, Fengjiu, would dare to take two mythological beasts to the beauty pavilion and kill the manager of the beauty pavilion. No one would dare to pursue the matter after you brought her back. In the end, it's still the benefits of being strong. Fengjiu sipped his wine and didn't say anything. In this world, wasn't the strong revered? Only when one was strong would no one dare to make a move. The next morning, when the disciples of the immortal sect saw the woman in a blue and white dress appear beside them, they couldn't help but be stunned. This woman was really beautiful, and her temperament was really excellent. Fengjiu glanced at them, the corners of her lips curling up slightly, and she smiled faintly. Beautiful people and beautiful things would always attract people's attention. This was human nature. Let's go, she said and looked at Wan Yenshir-san. Yes. The group of people followed them out of the inn and out of the city. A handsome man and a beautiful woman walking together, unsurprisingly, attracted the attention of many people. However, although those people curiously sized them up, no one dared to go up and provoke them. After all, whether it was temperament, clothes, or strength, they were enough to shock others. When they reached the outskirts of the city, Fengjiu waved his hand and a spaceship appeared in front of everyone. The disciples of the immortal sect had already seen her before, so it wasn't strange at all. But this was the first time Qi Naxian had seen her. She couldn't help but glance at her a few more times, secretly guessing just what her master's background was. After boarding the spaceship, Wan Yenshir-san lazily leaned back and looked at Qi Naxian. He smiled and said, Qi Naxian, since we have nothing to do, why don't you play a song for us to listen to? Qi Naxian did not respond. Instead, she looked at Fengjiu and silently asked for her opinion. Fengjiu smiled and took out a zither score from his sleeve. Play according to this. Don't use spiritual energy. Yes. Qi Naxian took the zither score with both hands and opened it. She couldn't help but be startled. She glanced at Fengjiu and sat cross-legged not far away. She took out her zither, placed it on her knees, and gently plucked the strings. She seemed to be testing the music. The sound of the zither came out intermittently. After a while, the sounds of the zither connected. A beautiful song poured out as her slender and white jade-like fingers gently plucked the strings, her fingers danced on the zither strings. Her finger technique was skillful and beautiful. The sound of the zither was pleasant and moving. Coupled with her outstanding appearance, the disciples of the immortal sect couldn't help but stare. Only the cold man stared at Fengjiu from time to time, as if he was still guessing her identity. Chapter 3057. Fengjiu, who was resting with her eyes closed, was awakened by the shaking. She opened her eyes and stood up. Using her divine sense, she saw a few dozen men in black standing on a flying ship. They were using the ship to ram into their ship, causing the ship to shake violently. Wan Yen-Shirsan stuck his head out to take a look. He immediately widened his eyes and turned to look at Fengzhou. Are they here for you again? Tell me, how many people have you offended? How many enemies have you made? Fengzhou glanced at him and said, I've just arrived here. How could I have made enemies? Even if there were, they were here for you. Hearing this, Wan Yen-Shirsan smiled embarrassedly. He knew that she was referring to the time when they were surrounded. It was true that they were here for him, but it was hard to say now. If we keep ramming like this, the ship won't be able to take it, the man surnamed Qin said. He looked at Fengzhou and said, Senior, why don't we stop the ship? Can you fight? Fengzhou glanced at him. Have you recovered from your injuries? Hearing this, they couldn't help but pause. Their injuries had not fully recovered. If they were to fight, they could only use 70% of their strength at most. There's a defensive barrier on the ship. Stay here, Fengzhou said. Then, she and Wan Yen-Shirsan looked at each other blindly. The two of them then exited the ship and headed outside. Seeing the two of them come out, the men in black standing on the ship instantly flew out on their swords. The sharp swords in their hands were suffused with bloodthirsty killing intent as they attacked them. The first attack was a killing move, and most of them were aimed at Wan Yen-Shirsan. Seeing this, Wan Yen-Shirsan's expression changed. He cursed loudly, which bastard wants me dead this time? He actually hired assassins from the Desperation Tower to ambush me. I told you they were here for you. Fengzhou smiled. She wasn't surprised at all. She hadn't made any enemies here. At most, she had killed a manager in the beauty pavilion, but it was only a manager. The people in the beauty pavilion wouldn't provoke her, who had 3 powerful divine beasts, just for a manager. In the past 2 days, those disciples of the immortal sect had been resting in the inn and had not offended anyone. Qin Axayan had no powerful enemies in the city, so naturally, they came for Wan Yen-Shirsan. Take his head and report back. The leader of the black-clothed men shouted in a deep voice, the long sword in his hand pointed directly at Wan Yen-Shirsan's head. Wan Yen-Shirsan instinctively touched his neck and looked angry. Fuck you. Don't you know who I am? How dare you attack me? See if I don't destroy you all. He snorted angrily and waved the flag in his hand. Countless spirits flew out and entangled the black-clothed men. He also held a sword in one hand and flew forward to slash down fiercely. Fengzhou, who was about to attack, was stunned for a moment. She looked at him and then smiled. She took a deep breath and rushed forward, breaking the defensive shield of the enemy's ship and directly killing her way into the ship. In an instant, an overwhelming killing intent spread through the air. A strong and fierce bloodthirsty aura wafted in the air along with the smell of blood. As blood splattered and bodies fell, the scene seemed to be faintly out of control. When the black-clothed men saw that the enemy had defeated them with just 2 people, they became anxious. They stared at the enemy's ship and immediately urged their ship to crash into the enemy's ship. Chapter 3058. Ah! Several people in the airship cried out in alarm. Their entire bodies fell to the side because the airship flipped over. The 2 women from the immortal sect didn't react in time and hit their heads on a corner of the ship, causing blood to seep out. Hold on to the ship. Qin Axayan shouted and had the 2 women hold on to the ship. Seeing the men jump out of the airship with swords, she also held on to the ship to prevent her body from being thrown out. The cries of alarm from the airship made Fengzhou frown. She shot the silver needle in her hand towards the black-clothed men. At the same time, her figure flashed, instantly arriving at the side of the airship and stabilizing the ship that was about to flip over. As soon as the immortal sect disciples came out, they were surrounded and attacked by several black-clothed men. Their strength wasn't weak, but their internal injuries hadn't healed. After fighting for a while, their speed gradually slowed down. Seeing a black-clothed man's sword about to stab one of the immortal sect disciples, the man surnamed Qin immediately rushed forward to pull him away. However, he was caught off guard and was slashed. He let out a muffled groan and felt fresh blood gushing out, quickly drenching his robes. He struggled to resist, but his fighting strength grew weaker and weaker with each injury. Seeing the two sharp swords about to pierce his heart, he couldn't help but smile bitterly as he couldn't dodge. If he died here, it would really be. Suddenly, his waist was grabbed by someone and he spun around to avoid the fatal attack of the two sharp swords. He was startled and turned his head slightly to see a man in green, no, a woman dressed as a man, holding his waist with one hand and bringing him away from danger. While she spun around to avoid danger, she raised her hand and attacked the two black-clothed men with a gust of wind. Smelling the woman's fragrance, he inexplicably felt his ears heat up. He said awkwardly, "Let go of me." Fengjiu spun around with him and a gust of wind rushed out in a circle. The black-clothed men who surrounded them all fell outside. She took a breath and directly sent the male disciple into the airship. Qin Axayan, help him treat his wounds. Fengjiu didn't even look at him as he ordered Qin Axayan, who was stopping the bleeding of the two women in the spaceship. Yes. Qin Axayan responded and caught the man brought in by her master. She saw that the man's face was pale, his robe was torn, and the wound was so deep that the bone could be seen. The blood had soaked most of his robe. She immediately helped him lie down on the deck of the boat and pressed the acupoints around his shoulder to take out medicine to stop the bleeding. On the other side, Fengjiu and Wan Yanshi-san were working together, and the enemy's numbers were decreasing one by one. Seeing that the situation was not in their favor, the black-clothed man who had been seriously injured by Fengjiu glared fiercely at Fengjiu and made a gesture to retreat. Retreat! The remaining 7 or 8 men in black quickly returned to the spaceship and prepared to escape. However, Fengjiu sneered. You want to leave? It's too late. How could she let the people who had tried to kill her leave alive? Her figure flashed and a green light flashed. At the same time, the Qingfeng sword appeared and killed several black-clothed men who were trying to escape. The remaining leader of the black-clothed men saw this and immediately took out a teleportation scroll to escape. However, before the scroll could be opened, the sharp sword energy was already in front of him. Xiao. Chapter 3059. The male disciples who had been injured by the sword and were leaning against the flying ship to catch their breath were terrified by this scene. It was too fast. Her sword was too fast. Her sword was so fast that it was impossible for anyone to dodge it. It was so fast that she had killed someone in one blow. Her opponent did not bleed on the spot but only bled after a few breaths had passed. This person was not lenient when she killed someone. Her technique was more like that of an assassin. After Fengjiu had killed the man, she slapped her head as if she had remembered something. She looked at Wan Yanshi-san with some annoyance. I forgot to leave you alive. They had all been killed. She did not even know who had sent them. If she had known, she would have left one alive. Hee, it's alright, it's alright. As long as he's alright, that's all that matters. Wan Yanshi-san smiled sheepishly as he spoke. He did not dare to blame this little girl for not leaving him alive. The people who had been sent today were all first-class assassins. If he had been alone, even if he had not died, he would have lost a layer of skin. However, he did not know who had wanted to kill him. In order to kill him, they had spent so much money and had even asked the Desperation Tower for help. Master, his wounds are too deep. They've injured his main artery and he can't stop the bleeding. Qin Axayan's voice rang out at this moment, carrying a trace of anxiety. Hearing this, Fengjiu quickly returned to the flying ship. She saw a large patch of blood on the ground and the man with the surname Qin was unconscious. His face was as pale as a sheet and his breathing was very weak. He's actually injured so badly. She was slightly surprised. She did not expect him to be so severely injured. She quickly stepped forward and took out a pill and stuffed it into his mouth. She then used a silver needle to seal the main artery on his shoulder. The others gathered around worriedly. When they saw the deep wound, they could not help but gasp. However, they saw that the blood had stopped flowing out of the wound not long after. Help him bandage his wounds. Use this medicine. Fengjiu handed the medicine to Qin Xin. She then looked at the others. Treat your wounds. As she spoke, she let the flying ship slowly descend. She planned to rest for a while and deal with the corpses at the same time. You keep an eye on them. I'll deal with the corpses and valuables. Wan Yanshirsan said, letting her stay on the ship to look after the disciples. Fengjiu nodded slightly and stayed on the flying ship to keep an eye on the surroundings. She saw that the other injuries were relatively light, and only the male disciple surnamed Qin's injuries were a little more serious. She said, you too, carry him inside. Senior brother Qin should be fine, right? He's so heavily injured. He won't die, right? A woman's eyes were red as she asked worriedly. I'll have to lie down for a few days. As for dying, I won't die. Fengjiu said and gestured to the two disciples who were only slightly injured to carry the injured into the cabin of the spaceship to rest. Just stay on the ship. Don't run around. Fengjiu instructed and followed behind the two disciples. When they entered the cabin, she asked the two disciples to leave first. She closed the door of the cabin and then untied the bandage to treat the wound on his shoulder. The main artery was cut, and the blood gushed out uncontrollably. The wound was so deep that it would take at least 1 or 2 months for him to recover. Moreover, if he lost too much blood, the wound would worsen. Therefore, it was best to treat him to ease the wound and shorten the recovery time. Chapter 3060. Seeing the figure inside, he smiled and walked up to knock on the door. Come in. Hearing the sound from inside the room, he pushed the door open and walked in. His gaze swept over the people inside, finally landing on Fengjiu and Xianyuanmo's. What a coincidence. I didn't expect to meet you here. He walked up with a smile and looked at Fengjiu, saying, to be able to see you here, you should have obtained the 1,000-year black spiritual tendons, right? Seeing that it was him, Fengjiu raised his brows, saying, it is quite a coincidence. Young Master Tan is also here to eat. I had an appointment with a few friends here. Just now, when the waiter closed the door, I caught a glimpse of Miss Feng here, so I wanted to come in to say hello and ask for a cup of wine. As he spoke with a smile, his gaze moved away from Fengjiu and landed on Xianyuanmo's, nodding slightly. Xianyuanmo's gaze swept over him, then moved away. He fetched a wine cup and poured wine, saying, please. Fengjiu had mentioned to him before that the news of the 1,000-year black spiritual tendons had come from this person. As a man himself, he understood the look in this man's eyes when he looked at Fengjiu. But, so what? His woman was so outstanding, it was normal for a man to be pleased with her and admire her. Seeing Xianyuanmo's actions, Tan Haotian's gaze moved slightly. He smiled and raised his wine cup, indicating to the two of them, saying, you too, this Tan salutes you. Fengjiu and Xianyuanmo's raised their wine cups, slightly indicating, then down the wine. After drinking a cup, Tan Haotian put down the wine cup, saying with a smile, this Tan won't disturb you too. Goodbye. As he spoke, he walked out in a carefree manner. The door closed again. Xianyuanmo's withdrew his gaze and picked up his chopsticks to pick up some food for her, saying, try it. As he spoke, he picked up some other food and placed it in her bowl. You also eat. Fengjiu said with a smile, also picking up some food for her. The two of them ate, chatted, and looked at the night scenery. On the other side, Leng Hua and the others also raised their wine cups and drank. However, after the meal, Qin Axian sat to the side and took out her zither to liven up the atmosphere. The melodious sound of the zither came from her fingers, echoing in the restaurant. Even the people on the street downstairs could hear the sound of the zither. However, they could only hear the sound, but didn't know where the sound came from, and couldn't see who was playing the zither. As the night deepened, they paid the bill and prepared to leave. At this time, there were no more people on the street. However, as they sat in the spirit deer carriage and slowly headed back to the residence, Fengzhou, who lifted the curtain to get some fresh air, saw a few black figures, seemingly carrying something, moving in the night. She raised her eyebrows, glanced in that direction, and said, "Ing-yi, follow them and take a look." "Yes." Ing-yi, who was in the dark, responded. In a flash, he moved and silently followed behind those people. Xianyuan Mose, who was sitting in the spirit beast carriage, heard her order to Ing-yi and said, "It's late at night. Why don't I accompany you for a walk?" It was fine to go back directly after eating. Since she was interested in those people, he might as well accompany her to take a look. Chapter 3061. When she came out of the cabin, Wanyan Shirsan had already returned. He placed the treasures and the spaceship in front of Fengzhou. "It's all here. You can keep it." Fengzhou didn't refuse and directly put away those things. Then, as if he had thought of something, he said to Qin Axian, "Come here. Master. These magic tools are for you to protect yourself. Also, keep these. In addition, keep these bottles of medicine, just in case." She took out some things and explained to her how to use them. Finally, she handed her a pendant-shaped chain. "This is a spatial magic tool. Wear it around your neck." Looking at those things, Qin Axian's heart moved slightly. She looked at Fengzhou, took the things, and softly thanked him. "Thank you, Master." Several immortal sect disciples saw that she gave all those things to the woman and couldn't help but feel a little envious. They didn't know anything else, but they could see that her medicine seemed to be very powerful. It was more powerful than the life-saving pills they had collected. "Let's rest here today. I'll go around to see if there are any wild animals and bring back some food," Wanyan Shirsan said as he got off the spaceship and went into the forest. "Follow him," Fengzhou said to the two tiger beast men who were lying on the side and curled up into a small bowl. As soon as he finished speaking, the two tiger beast men jumped up and followed Wanyan Shirsan and left. With the help of the two tiger beast men, Wanyan Shirsan picked up some branches and let the two tiger beast men catch the wild animals. Not long after, he came back with a pile of branches and lit a fire not far from the spaceship. "Fengzhou, I picked up some branches. You can roast the wild animals. I found a stream not far ahead. The water is very clear. I'm going to take a bath and change my clothes. You can deal with these first. If there aren't enough branches, call me." He called for Fengzhou to come down. "Got it. Go." Fengzhou responded and walked towards the fire. On the spaceship, the immortal sect disciples couldn't help but be stunned after hearing Wanyan Shirsan's words. "Fengzhou. So, this green-clothed senior was the master of Venerable CK and Venerable Muexian. Was she the person that the disciple was talking about?" Thinking of this, they couldn't help but feel nervous. The master of Venerable CK and Venerable Muexian. She was also an alchemist master. No wonder her medicine was so good. So this was it. Qin saw the slight change in their expressions, especially the woman beside her. She asked, "Miss Mu, are you not feeling well? Why are you sweating?" No, I'm not feeling unwell. I'm just. She was just frightened. This green-robed senior was actually the master of her Mu clan's ancestor? She had been with her ancestor's master all this time. Thinking of this, she wiped the sweat from her forehead and suddenly felt a lot of pressure. The people on the spaceship looked at each other, then walked down to the fire and asked, "Senior, let's help too. Is there anything we can do? Do you need help?" Fengjiu glanced at them. Yes. The few of them quickly nodded their heads. Hearing this, Fengjiu thought for a moment. Seeing the two tiger beast men dragging the wild animals back, he smiled and said, "Then help me clean up the wild animals." Okay. They quickly rolled up their sleeves and got ready to work. Chapter 3062. Qin Axian was stunned by Fengjiu's words. Although she found it strange, she still nodded. She walked to the side and sat down to practice with her zither. These disciples were all core disciples of the immortal sect and were born in aristocratic families. But here, in front of Fengjiu, they didn't dare to put on airs and could only do what they were supposed to do. Fengjiu was in charge of roasting the meat while the others helped. After a while, the aroma of the meat wafted through the air, making the disciples swallow their saliva. I smelled the aroma from a long distance away. Wanyan Shirsan laughed and walked over. I caught a few fish downstream and cleaned them. Come, let's roast them together. Put the fish on the branch. Fengjiu handed him the branch. He added wine and spices to the roasted meat and cut a piece to taste it. Then he said to them, "It's ready to eat. Cut it yourself." As he spoke, he called Qin Axian over to eat. As soon as she finished speaking, the disciples immediately began to eat. They also roasted the meat themselves outside, but it didn't taste as good as hers. The tiredness of the day and the thrill of being ambushed were all relieved at this moment. After eating, Fengjiu returned to the spaceship and sat cross-legged to cultivate. The disciples outside the spaceship sat around the fire and chatted with Wanyan Shirsan. "Senior Wanyan, so she is the master of Venerable CK and Venerable Mu Axian." Wanyan Shirsan glanced at them. "You just found out." "We only found out when you called out her name. If you didn't say it, who would believe that she was a woman? Moreover, she is the master of two masters at the peak of the divine realm." As they talked, Qin Axian was stunned when she heard this. She looked at Wanyan Shirsan and asked hesitantly, "Master is a woman?" She had always thought that the master was a man. "She is a woman." Wanyan Shirsan took a bite of the meat and said to her, "She is also a very beautiful woman." Qin Axian was stunned for a moment and then nodded. It turned out to be a woman. Although he did not show it on his face, there was still a trace of disappointment in his heart. She thought that her master was a man, and she had always thought of her master as a man. She didn't expect her master to be a woman. For a woman, it was natural for her to have some thoughts about a man who had saved her and treated her differently. Although she didn't dare to have any thoughts about her master, but in her heart, that elegant young master in green had long been reflected in her heart. Wanyan Shirsan looked at her in a daze, and couldn't help laughing. "You secretly like her in your heart. Are you surprised to learn that she's a woman?" "No," Qin Axian said hurriedly. "Heh, you're just giving yourself away." He glanced at her and said, "But it's normal. Your master is like a butterfly, attracting bees and butterflies everywhere. It's understandable that you secretly like her. After all, a hero who saves a beauty can always win the beauty's heart." When the people next to him heard this, they couldn't help but smile. They chatted around the fire until it was late at night, and then they went back to the boat to rest. The next morning, after resting, they continued their journey in the direction of Sifang City. Chapter 3063. When they heard this, they awkwardly replied, "Yes, we will remember." When they arrived at the immortal sect's entrance, the flying boat stopped. Two of them went in to help the man surnamed Qin out. After 2 or 3 days of recuperation, although his body had not recovered, his complexion was much better than before. Many thanks to the two seniors for this trip. The disciples bowed to the two. There's no need to thank us. It's just a business transaction. Go in. As Fingzhou spoke, she waved her hand and put away the flying boat. Riding her sword, she brought Wang Yanshi-san and Qin Axan towards Sifang City. When they arrived at the Feng Manor's entrance, they could not help but be slightly surprised. They saw that there were quite a few people lined up in front of the Feng Manor's entrance. Also, looking at their clothes and cultivation, they were not normal commoners. They could not help but feel strange. What was going on? This is your manor. Why are there so many people outside? Wang Yanshi-san glanced over and looked at the line of people. I don't know. Fengzhou shook her head. She had just returned from outside. How could she know what was going on? I'll go ask. Wang Yanshi-san spoke and walked forward to ask the people behind her. Not long later, she returned and looked at Fengzhou with a strange expression, saying, some have come to ask for pills, some have come to ask for medicine, and some have come to ask for treatment. He looked at her strangely and said, your manor is about to become a medical clinic. Why is it that there are people asking for everything? Fengzhou's eyes flickered when she heard this and said, let's go through the back door. As she spoke, she led them to the back door. Seeing that there was a formation set up at the back door, and it was impossible to see where the door was from the outside, he could not help but feel surprised. You actually set up a formation here? Is this even possible? Fengzhou led them inside and said, why not? It's your own home. You can set it up however you want. My manor has formations and barriers everywhere. Don't run around when you're inside. I know. Wang Yanshi-san complied and followed her inside. However, he saw that there was not even half a guard in this huge mansion. How come I don't even see a single guard? He asked. I don't need guards here. As she spoke, a bald old man walked over. He glanced at them, then looked at Fengzhou and grinned. I was wondering who it was. It turns out that Miss has returned. He is the gatekeeper of my residence, Elder May. Fengzhou said to the two people, and then said to Elder May, this is Wang Yanshi-san, and this is Qin Axan. Wang Yanshi-san is a guest, and Qin Axan will be a member of the mansion from now on. Oh, Old May replied and nodded before giving the two of them a once-over. How has the family been while I was gone? She asked as she walked inside. It's all right. There are people coming to visit every day. Look, there's even a line outside the door. We can't chase them away even if we want to. Meija followed beside her and said, Du Fan and the others came back after completing their mission yesterday. They knew that Miss wasn't here, so they stayed in the mansion. Seeing the two of them walking inside, Wang Yanshi-san could not help but feel surprised. Fengzhou was one thing, but who was this bald old man guarding the door? How come he could not see through his strength? Ruoda's mansion did not have many guards, and they came in through the back door without making any noise. How did this old man know that someone came in through the back door? Not simple.